better pain than nothing.
Vader wakes up in his bacta tank, agonizing pain all over his body, the tubes and electronics covering his charred flesh. Padme, where are you? His senses slowly come back to him. He realizes where he is. He remembers who he has become. He dons his black suit and armor. His helmet is slowly lowered on his burnt face. Every morning, he whispers a quiet, mournful sentence. Padme, I need you. I will find the way to bring you back. When it comes to Darth Vader, most of the focus is on the external. His towering stature, intimidating appearance, and terrifying evil are often at the forefront of mainstream discussion. Today, we'll take a look at the inside of the black suit. Seemingly all-powerful on the outside, maybe on the inside, the Dark Lord isn't as powerful as he seems. In fact, every single day of Vader's life is in perpetual pain and suffering, both physically and psychologically. Looking at Vader's past, it's obvious that he's had a hard life. And all his life as Anakin, he sought power, significance, and the ability to control people and circumstances around him. He searches for ways leading to this power, through the Jedi at first, but to no avail. One of the reasons why he wanted to become a Jedi Master was to access the hidden sections of the library at the Jedi Temple only available to Masters, a privilege he was denied and only had access to after becoming Vader. His childhood as a slave, his inability to protect his mother, the constant mistreatment by the Jedi, all affected his ability of judgment. He had only one person he was truly and wholeheartedly devoted to, Padme Amidala. That's why, when we look at Vader, we see a man ridden with guilt and self-blame. He thinks he deserves his suffering as Vader, because he blames himself for everything that happened. He, at the end of the day, blames himself for losing Padme. That's why he obsessively searches for a way to resurrect her. Vader's pain cannot be explained without mentioning the suit. It's not an armor. It's not just a life support system. It's a prison, carefully and intricately designed by Palpatine to keep Vader in a perpetual state of weakness, so that he can be better controlled and kept obedient. Speaking of Palpatine, he was always afraid of Vader's power and potential. Given the way of the Sith and how the rule of two functions, he had every right to be cautious. But he was so paranoid that he built the suit in a way that deliberately hinders Vader's power. It was also designed to be extremely weak to lightning, which is part of the reason why Vader loses his strength so quickly at the end of Return of the Jedi. Thousands of needles pierced his body constantly, delivering nutrients and crucial drugs necessary to keep him alive. The suit was uncomfortable by design, not just to keep him weak, but through keeping him in a constant state of pain and suffering, it strengthened his connection to the dark side of the Force. Vader knew he was the primary reason for the fall of the galaxy. He didn't hide the fact from himself or anybody else. He liked to cope by thinking that it was necessary for the ultimate betterment of the galaxy, and that he had no other choice at the time. The guilt he carried transformed to self-hatred. He didn't do much to alter the suit, or his life, or anything at all, because deep in his mind, he deserved it all. Another way he coped was by thinking that one day, just one day, he would eventually become strong enough to overthrow Palpatine and take his revenge. This was also another reason why he studied the dark side so obsessively. Through finding Sith holocrons and exploring ancient ruined temples at the forgotten corners of the galaxy, these worlds, with an exceptionally potent presence of the dark side of the Force, once served as the seats of power of the ancient Sith empires now long gone. It was in these out-of-the-way systems that Vader searched for the hidden knowledge of the dark side. Needless to say, the knowledge he obsessively sought, he never actually found. His bacta tank was the only place he could exist, if only briefly, without his cumbersome suit. Stripped of every human joy imaginable, his tank wasn't just a place of meditation and reflection. It was the only place where he felt like himself again. It was the one tiny place in the galaxy where he could barely remember what it was like being human, what it was like being Anakin Skywalker once again. Whenever those thoughts popped up in his head, though, he would quickly shut them down. To him, being human represented his past, a past long gone. He wasn't Anakin anymore, and would never be again. He was more machine than man, and he wholeheartedly adopted his identity. To him, being human again was something to be suppressed. It was a weakness, and he had promised himself long ago that he would never be weak again. Obi-Wan Kenobi, his old master, he hunted Kenobi down obsessively, to the point where Palpatine eventually reprimanded him, telling him that he had better focused on strengthening himself in the dark side than to spend his days trying to find one lone Jedi just for a quest of personal vengeance. But to Vader, finding Obi-Wan was more than just vengeance. It was a way for him to atone for his past, which he deemed weak. It was a way for him to finally bury Anakin Skywalker, the Jedi, in the sand, and fully embrace his identity as a Sith Lord. He was always a lonely and relatively isolated Jedi in the past. Obi-Wan and Padme were all he had, but as Vader, he was truly at the top of the galaxy, alone. Part of the reason why he remained loyal to Palpatine for decades was because he didn't have anyone else. Yes, he hated his master to the death. After all, Palpatine had promised him power and freedom, but all he ever gave Vader was another form of slavery. But at the end of the day, Palpatine was all he had. Even though he gradually accepted his loneliness over the years, the pain never really left him. He kept missing Padme each agonizing day of his life, yet never managed to bring her back. The one thing that succeeded in bringing him out of his spiral of suffering was his son, Luke Skywalker. Before, he had nothing meaningful in his life but his suffering. Now, with Luke, everything was different. Suddenly, once again, he had purpose. Once again, he had a real connection to hold on to. The drive to protect and save the ones he loved. The ambition that drove him to the dark resurfaced once again. Only this time he chose differently. He chose the way of the light. What made him fall before this time saved and redeemed him. His love for his son brought him back. Only at the end he realized what he searched for in the dark side for years could only be found in the light. Darth Vader did not suffer because of Obi-Wan, or Palpatine, or the lava on Mustafar. He suffered from his belief that after everything he had done, he no longer deserved to be Anakin Skywalker. For over 20 years, he lived inside a prison he believed he had earned, convincing himself that pain was justice and loneliness was his sentence. It wasn't the armor that kept Anakin Skywalker buried for so long, it was the guilt. Beneath the armor, the hatred, and the breeding, there remained a man who had forgotten that redemption begins long before forgiveness from others. It begins with believing that, despite everything, there's still someone left to save. Thank you for watching. This is worth a second look. Take care.
Padme, I will find a way to bring you back to me.